Every year now, for the past several years, Wargaming has released new lines of ships into the game, and instead of grinding them like a old fashioned normal person, I've spent an inordinate amount of global XP upgrading them, progressing down the tech trees, etc. And that has prevented me from acquiring the last global XP ship that I was missing, the Tier 7 French premium battleship Gascogne. But with the release of the new Dutch cruiser line, I realized I had somehow acquired 700,000 global XP. And of course, this ship costs 750,000 global XP. So I finally managed to muster up enough discipline to save the global XP and buy the Gascogne. I've played it before, of course. It was loaned to us when it was originally released in the game by Wargaming, but only temporarily. I think I had it for a week, and looking at my stats on the ship, I played it about 7 times in that week, and I had like a 70 something percent win rate, which I thought was pretty good. Indicates to me that the ship must not be all that bad. I think, though, in the time since it was originally released, it received a buff. And I think, if I remember correctly, the buff was to the dispersion parameters on the main battery guns. Previously, the Gascogne had regular battleship dispersion, but now I think it enjoys battle cruiser dispersion, which is slightly better. I don't know that we'll see much evidence of that in this game, but I think this is kind of a fun little match to have as your very first match in a ship that you haven't played in years. Note that there are a lot of cruisers on the leaderboard, or on the team lineup rather, and I believe, if memory serves me correctly, we're going to be sinking 3 of them in pretty quick succession. These guns and the Gascogne, there are 8 in total, of course, set in 2 quadruple turrets, one on the front, one on the back. It's got the same main battery sort of setup as the Champagne or the République, although maybe it's more accurate to say those 2 ships have the same turret setup as this one, because after all, this one was the first. In any case, we're approaching the Delta Cap. I want to get away from the friendly Bismarck that you see sailing from the right of the screen to the left in order to get different angles on the enemy ships so that we can hopefully create crossfires. Of course, we don't want to push into this capture circle. It's turning red, and there's a smoke screen inside of it, which is a strong indication that it's occupied by the lone solitary enemy destroyer, which is a Xian Yang. So we take our first shot of the battle at the spotted Brindisi. The results aren't great. He turns away from the salvo, but one nice thing about the Gascogne is that the guns reload pretty quickly. I think the reload is 23 seconds. So, one bum salvo, no problem. 23 seconds later, another salvo downrange at the enemy cruiser, and this time, we're rewarded with a double citadel, along with 2 pens and 3 overpens. 31,000 damage done now in just 2 shots. Maybe we can finish off the Brindisi here. We need to clear up this capture circle ideally, and keep an eye out for the enemy destroyer. Our friendly destroyer has sailed over to this flank, and look, he's just spotted the enemy. It is the Xian Yang. We haven't looked at him yet, but he should be our next target rather than the Dmitry Donsko. What are we doing here? There we go. We're aiming at the Xian Yang now. Along with the rest of our team, he's certainly taken a lot of damage. Not exactly sure how he's even spotted. It might be the friendly cruiser over there, actually. Shot out at the Xian Yang. Of course, it misses. We don't lead the shot correctly. But again, we get to enjoy this relatively quick reload on these 8 380mm guns. Xian Yang looks like he is poised to escape the onslaught from the blue team, laying another smoke screen, hoping to get out alive. But this salvo with terrible dispersion goes out and actually makes contact. Xian Yang goes down for our first kill of the game. That's a major advantage, of course. The enemy team no longer has any destroyers, so any spotting they're going to have to do with their faces. And it just so happens that there's a bunch of cruisers on this flank. But now that the Xian Yang is eliminated, it may be possible to actually push in. Certainly, we don't want to push in against a Pan Asian destroyer while it's still floating. The deep water torpedoes are perhaps some of the scariest torpedoes in the game. You can know that they've been launched at you, or you can guess that they have, just like with any other torpedo. And if you maneuver properly by shifting your rudder right to left or starboard to port, whatever, messing with the throttle, they can be avoided just like conventional torpedoes. However, they only get spotted when they're a couple less than 1 kilometer from your face. So that doesn't leave a lot of time to react. And even if you know the direction they're coming in, it's very easy to get hit by them. So certainly you don't want to push into it. But now that the torpedo threat has been eliminated, none of these cruisers are really true torpedo threats. I think the Brindisi has gone down. He's got the longest range torpedoes, and even then, they're Italian sea mines. The results against the broadside of the Dmitry Donskoy are what typically irritate battleship players. A lot of overpens there. And we've got Flandre, which is perhaps a superior ship to the Gascogne. I think it may be more fun to play if you're looking for a Global XP battleship and you want a French one. I'd probably recommend Flandre over this just because it has the ability to spec into secondaries. The secondaries don't do a whole lot of damage. They're too small, generally speaking, to pen that much armor, but they are little flamethrowers. And the Flandre has more guns than the Gascogne, albeit they are the same size. Gascogne, though, certainly doesn't seem like a bad ship to get if you're not interested in Flandre. There's Pozarski turning away, another salvo out at yet another cruiser, and we're headed toward the middle of the map now. But note the Flandre that we were just singing the praises of. Not necessarily the player, but the ship. He's turned around. He's coming around this corner here on the side of the island, and we're going to remain prepared for him. Time to do a little bit of brawling. The Gascogne doesn't have great armor, of course. It's a French battleship, so it's coated in 32 everywhere, except for the Citadel belt armor. Same thing for the Flandre, but I would say Flandre is actually a good brawler, mostly because it's got, I think, over 70,000 HP, 72,000 if I remember correctly, whereas we have 60,000. That's nerfed slightly. We're using the Megalomania skill, I believe, and we're actually running Azurlane Richelieu. I forgot. I should have mentioned that before now. But the new Azurlane commander, just to see how good she is on something that has buffed dispersion. Flandre, for whatever reason, decides that we're not a very interesting target. He wants to completely ignore us, and apparently he can do so. We get 0 damage as we don't zoom down the binoculars and shoot the front turret there. Maybe all the shells went into the water. I'm not quite sure what happened. I might have been aiming too low, but we'll aim down the binoculars this time as we take a second shot at the Flandre. He's in hot pursuit of the friendly cruiser there, which I believe is a Schroeder. Schroeder's secondaries appear to be shredding the Flandre, and he's on very low health, so we do exactly 0 damage on him, and we're just going to go away and then shoot at the cruisers here. Now, at a range of 4 kilometers to the Dmitry Donskoy, we do get a Citadel. Flandre goes down, and we've got about 3 cruisers here at danger close range to mess with. Another decent shot into the Dmitry Donskoy. No Citadels, but some full pens and a couple over pens. One more salvo from the main battery guns ought to do it. He goes down for our second kill of the game. And then we've got Brindisi over here, who I'm surprised to see alive. I would have thought he had sunk already, but no. He's still floating. Torpedoes coming in, courtesy of somebody, probably the Brindisi, who gets citadeled right through the front of his ship and goes down for our third kill of the game. And then Pozarski decides, yes, let's peek out from behind the island broadside. Bad idea. 2 citadels, and that's enough to end the game. Flandre, or Gascogne, rather. I can't believe I just said Flandre, but Gascogne, 138,000 damage, 4 kills, 3,000 XP in the very first match I had back with the ship. This is something I'll be playing a little bit more extensively, maybe testing out Azurlane Richelieu a little bit more. But I thought you might enjoy seeing my first results back in the Gascogne. I'm sure we'll be seeing it a little bit more as time goes on, but I hope you enjoyed this video for today. If so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.